Now let's summarize some of the key issues that were discussed in the briefing today. We do have our reporter Zinhle Kanyane, who's been following that briefing very closely, and she joins us live now. A very good afternoon to you, Zinhle. You are stationed in Rustenburg and have been listening to this briefing quite closely. Now, one of the key factors that was considered here for the postponement of the reopening of schools today is a number of reports that were submitted to the Minister and the National Education Collaboration Trust. And we heard from them today, Mr. Godwin Okosa, outlining some of the key elements that were contained in that report. If you could just highlight some of those key reasons that were given for the postponement of the beginning of education today.
Well, it seems like it's back to the drawing board for the Department of Education to ensure that the logistics are in place come the 8th of June. Some of the main reasons why this has been a stumbling block for the Department of Education was the procurement process according to the issue of masks particularly. It seems as though not all masks had been delivered at the appropriate time. We understand adequate PPE is currently being delivered to various schools across the province and across the country between today and tomorrow. But also the issue of water. We understand water tanks were supposed to be delivered way before last week, but because of inadequate supply, according to the department and according to Rand Water as well, they were not able to adequately supply water tankers to various schools. Now, in the Northwest alone, there's 171 schools that do not have adequate water supply. There's also schools in the province that do not have toilets at all. So they are saying they are going to prioritize those particular schools. They're also saying for the schools that have received PPE, they are going to give them this week to induct students, learners, as well as induct parents as well on the procedure going forward and how school will be conducted during this COVID-19 pandemic. So those are some of the key issues that seem to have put a hold or put this long backlog of deliverance by the Department of Education. They also said that the people that had been given the tenders to procure masks for various schools did not have the adequate supply to supply that large number of masks. They were not able to supply the different schools with the adequate masks, and so they had to then pause that kind of tender and redo everything, which gave them about a 3-week backlog. So those are some of the challenges that they've stated. But in the beginning of the media conference, the Minister, Angie Motshekga, took the time to profusely apologize to the nation for misleading the nation in the build-up to the 1st of June. We had an impression from the Department of Education that it was all systems go, whereas in fact it was nothing close to that. And so she took the time to really apologize for that misleading that we've seen, that as well as unions have said that they've been vindicated by this.
And I think it's quite noteworthy as well, Zinhle, to consider the amount of backlash that the minister was getting on the lead up to the 1st of June from various quarters, including the unions, teachers' organizations, even other political parties. So really ample opportunity there to go back to the drawing board and at least give the education department, give the teachers, give the parents, give the learners enough time to basically re-prepare themselves, because as you said, it was all systems go until literally 5-2. But I want some clarity here, and I'm hoping that you would help with this if maybe our 2 ears are better than one. When the Rand Water presentation was being made, Mr. Jwala spoke about the number of schools in the various provinces, and he mentioned a number for KZN which was around 1,125. Was my hearing correct? Did he say that only 8 of those 1,125 schools are ready and 65 tanks had been installed? Is that what he said?
Well, the reality, Tammy, is that Durban or KZN is not the only province that has such a difference in the numbers in terms of the schools that are ready and the schools that have not been procured or have not been given the necessary equipment to reopen schools. It's not just KZN, you are right. There is a very big gap in the numbers that we've seen here represented or being given by Rand Water, even in the Northwest. There's a big gap. It seems like there's a lot of work that Rand Water still needs to do, not just in the Northwest alone, but across all provinces. And I did ask Tebogo from Rand Water if he realistically thinks that just a week is enough for them to be able to procure and ensure that each and every school is ready for the reopening of schools come the 8th. And he says undoubtedly that he believes they are ready and they will be able to procure all of those equipments. But we also saw the president tweeting as well, just stressing the issue of honesty during this time from the Department of Education, saying that the more that the department is honest about the state of readiness, it will ease a lot of anguish and a lot of anxiety. And that's where the mistake has happened from the Department of Education. For the longest time, Tammy, we've had this sermon from the Department of Education that everything is under control, everything is ready, until literally the last minute. And so I think going forward, if there's a lesson that they should have learned, is the issue of being honest about the state of readiness of each and every province, because in reality, it doesn't seem like the provinces are ready for the reopening of schools.
Not at all, Zinhle. And this 1 week window that they've given themselves in order to get ready does not seem like a realistic timeline. There are some parents. I've also just been going through social media and catching up with some of the reactions. Some people saying, why not actually just wait an entire month? Why not give yourselves an entire 4 weeks to make sure that, because you don't want to have a phased opening, because then they've said that would be risky as well, why not give yourself a longer period of time to make sure that your yes is your yes and your go is your go. That also allows parents to better prepare themselves, as well as teachers to better prepare themselves. But tell us once again, Zinhle, about the reasoning behind the lack of phased reopening. Earlier on, there's a statement there that the minister made, and she said it would be risky to have a blanket opening of schools. Tell us about this.
Well, there were propositions during the consultation process, propositions of certain provinces that were ready, like Gauteng and the Western Cape, going ahead and reopening schools today, and the rest of the provinces that are having difficulty then follow after. But she says there's a danger in that approach of reopening schools in a blanket approach, because then it just disadvantages different children, which, this whole scenario is way above their capability, and they have no control over it. So it would be unfair for other children to have advantage over others. So that was the reasoning behind that particular decision. But also the fact that reality is, Tammy, that schools are not ready. The majority of schools are not ready to reopen. And with them just giving themselves just a week to prepare for the reopening of schools, we are most likely to see another postponement, because we're seeing the track or the trend that the Department of Education has been following in the build up to this weekend. And it seemed as though they were pushing so hard for the 1st of June to reopen, regardless of the fact that they knew that on the ground schools were not ready. So we do get a sense of this rush to open schools, but at the same time, educational experts say the sooner we open schools, the better. But obviously, the lives and the safety of not just the learners, but the teachers must be at the priority of the reopening of schools. And I think that is why now the Department of Education is going back to the drawing board, trying to strategize how exactly to approach this, but at the same time giving themselves a very short week to prepare for this build-up to the reopening of schools.
Well,